realities that it could serve to our needs. I'm going to read a poem and then we'll go. This is called Patterning the Chaos. Born into this world, then life happens. Starting out with or without a plan. There was what wanted, and the way turned out. And there was no bridge for in between. Some fallings of casualties into brokens, that looking for putting back togethers. With desperate confusions and hurts, patterning the chaos way into lifestyles. Both kind of personal and impersonal. Hidden feelings mutating into simmerings. Reacting thoughts into internal combustions. Igniting different smolderings in our heads. Running away becomes chasing after our lives. Traumas, dramas, and regrets take center stage. In some ways, life isn't fair, and neither are we. Look how we're treated. Look how we treat ourselves. Woundeds looking for healing turns into a constant. Bewilderings of how long must these lookings last? Where doubts keep bleeding the emotions of fears. Searchers grasping for any kind of healing or healers. While just a thought pulse away, there's light in a spin. Trying to brighten our clarities, we are the healer we need. Any way we think, we can create self-healing from within, just as in a way we believe we can self-destruct from within. Sometimes when it rains, it's not that simple. When the sky has reasons to cry. This morning the mirror didn't know who I was today. I remember some of that whatever happened to us. Then sometimes I'm too occasional to understand or comprehend. What I believed was because I was delusional. There's no other explanation. Clinging to the program, obviously, is the obvious lie. Before the fantasy was the dream. Fantasy is the leftovers, a toxic waste from mining the dream. It's a perceptual thing. This technologic mental state, imprinting illusions, manufacturing perceptions, packaging free thinking into reactive thought. This evening, the mirror saw that I looked kind of familiar tonight. Sometimes when it rains, it's not that simple. When the sky has reasons to cry. So, I'm kind of disoriented. So, welcome. So welcome to my wobble. We'll synchronize, because I know I'm not the only disoriented one in here. I know it, just my instincts tell me. But I want to kind of have a quick little briefly about industrial hemp. Now, I would like people to consider learning everything that you possibly can about industrial hemp. And I can't make the direct linkages to how it would help this tribe, but I know that it would, especially when the tribe goes into the areas of receiving back its federal recognition. Now, industrial hemp, see, I have to be careful how I go off on this, because I'm really not a fanatic about it, but sometimes I just sound like it. It's something I got no control over. But anyway, about industrial hemp. If you would take it upon yourselves individually to learn as much as you can about industrial hemp. If you have a computer, Google it. Industrial hemp and its environmental purposes. The economics of industrial. Just put industrial hemp in it, add whatever words you want to, and something will show up. And all of it will be bringing real information. And I want to bring that because in some ways we're talking about how it could help the tribe, how it would help all of us. But my main emphasis about industrial hemp, see, I kind of look at the environmentalist and everybody that wants to do right. I think it's fear-based. It's like right now, the environmentalists and all the people are going after that, they're doing it because they're afraid. They're not doing it because they truly understand about our relationship to the planet. I look at every social movement, whether it's medical marijuana, whether it's I look at every social movement. And in every social movement, we're all looking out for ourselves, for our particular point of view. See, and I think it's time that we come up and we look out for the planet, that we look out for the earth. See, and hemp is one of those issues, is one of those things that can serve all the interest. It can serve the interest of looking out for ourselves, simultaneously looking out for the interest of the planet. And hemp, and this is why I want you to research it and learn what you can for yourself, because I don't want you to believe a word I say, because if you tell me something, I'm not going to believe you, right? Because I'll trust you and I'll understand it and I'll get it, but see, I don't want believing. I want people to take it upon themselves to learn the information. And about hemp, up until the mid-1880s, it was the largest cultivated crop on this planet. Hemp. Human beings, our history from the very beginning of memory is intertwined with hemp. The technological perceptual reality we're in now wouldn't be possible without hemp. If they, way back in the long time ago days, if they didn't have hemp to make rigging and they didn't have hemp to make sails, they wouldn't have had the boats to go as far as they go the way that they went. If they didn't have hemp, they wouldn't have been able to make shelter. It helped to create shelter. I won't say they wouldn't have been able to, but it provided shelter, it provided food, nutrition. See, so we've always had a relationship for it. It provided paper, all right? It provided linen. So through human evolution, we've always had a relationship with it. And that relationship was so entrenched that up until the mid-1880s, it was the most cultivated crop on this planet. But see, it was around the middle 1800s that they discovered oil. And the thing about oil, see, is it could be controlled only by a few. See, whereas hemp was not the same deal. But oil, only a few could control the oil and therefore control access to it. So that means when the world became dependent, so their objective was for profitability motives to make the world dependent on oil, because this would make them wealthy and give them power by their definitions of power and authority. So hemp was, and as they discovered what they could do with oil, see, well, what they could do with oil, they could do with hemp. Or what they could do with hemp, they could do with oil. So it rolls on over into the 1900s, and by the 1900s now they figured out how to make plastics. And Randolph Hearst owned all these forests and newspapers. And hemp, up till that time, hemp in American history, the first grow law in this country was a must-grow law. They had to grow hemp. That was the very first grow law that was ever enacted in this country, and it's before this country was a country, so they were still colonies. Up until the mid-1800s, you could pay your taxes with hemp. So in many places, it became mandatory to grow hemp. The War of 1812, part of the reason the War of 1812 was fought between the British and the Americans had to do with the British had shut off America's hemp supplies from Spain. So hemp, very intertwined into this thing. So hemp provided material needs for a growing country. It provided an economic base. And now so this is kind of like the history, right, that goes on. So then when they discovered oil, and by the early 1900s they figured out that hemp was a direct competition. It was a direct threat to the economics of oil. So in the early 1900s, They wanted to shut down hemp, but they couldn't say that they were after hemp. Because America, first flag was made out of hemp. The Constitution, the drafts of the Constitution, that hemp was just too integral. And all of our grandparents had a relationship. They understood hemp. It was acceptable. The people, the land, the farmers, everybody. So it was not a bad thing. So when they saw that hemp was a competition to oil, they picked the THC aspect of hemp, marijuana. They created, marijuana comes out of Mexican slang, right? So they created marijuana. They didn't create marijuana, but what they did was they emphasized marijuana, and they did this reefer madness. So they went after the hemp, but they went through the marijuana because they knew that the farmers and the American people would not accept going after the hemp. So they created this psychological terror campaign around marijuana. And how it made white women lose their morals. They wanted to go out with black men and brown men, and right? People went out and committed mass murder and all this stuff. I mean, this was newspaper stuff. This was being pumped out. I'm not making this up. This is reality. They told people this, and people believed it. So then they got the Congress to outlaw hemp, to outlaw marijuana, the cannabis plant. They got them to outlaw the cannabis plant, of which hemp is a part of it. So they snuck it in. Now we'll bring it up to what the role hemp could play now. You can make fuel out of hemp. An acre of hemp seed will produce like 300 gallons of fuel that you could run in an engine. You can use it to run a machine, anything. The hemp plant will provide housing. You can make hempcrete, stronger than concrete. Out of hemp, you can make a car. You can make plastics out of hemp that are stronger than the steel and the metal the plastic cars are being made out of now. So you can make a car out of hemp. You can make the fuel to run that car out of hemp. You can create the energy to light your house with hemp. It makes a stronger fabric for wearing than cotton does. It can be grown. The hemp seed and the food that comes out of the hemp is more nutritious than any other single plant. Inside of our body, we have what are called cannabinoid receptors scattered throughout our body. We have in our body specific receptors that are designed for the cannabis plant. This means something, You don't have it for any other plant. Hemp is an interesting, and it doesn't need pesticides. See, so people that grow these hemp crops, right, they don't need to buy all these, they don't need to buy the pesticides that are being put out by companies like Monsanto and other ones. The hemp plant doesn't need it. It's built in itself. You don't need it to stop weeds, because the way the hemp plant grows, the weeds, it shuts out the light for the weeds. So hemp is a very, very interesting thing. And it would save the farmer. It would give the farmer an economic base that they do not have now. Out of hemp, you have industry. In 1937, just around the same period of time that hemp was being outlawed, the Popular Mechanics, they came out with these government issues and reports saying that hemp was to serve the purpose of agriculture and industry. Hemp was the next, they called it, billion-dollar crop. So let's transfer those numbers. See, billion-dollar crop then, we're talking about trillion-dollar crop now. The economics of hemp. And the other thing that I want to add to it about hemp, maybe, because I look in terms of the planet. This is something I think that we can do, no matter what our culture, we say we're for the earth and we want to save it all. Well, to me, I think hemp is something that we could really make applicable, and we could make it happen. Global warming, climate change. Well, see, the other aspect about hemp is that if we had as many acres of hemp under cultivation as we do corn for ethanol, if we had an equal amount of acreage under cultivation for hemp, it would create this fantastic, incredible economic base. But it would also at the same time create fresh oxygen for a sky that is being suffocated by carbon dioxide. They have this thing called the red thing now, where corporations are allowed to pollute the environment if they buy some trees somewhere. All right, and don't cut the trees down, and then these trees act as what they call carbon filters to pull it out of the air. Hemp will do that, and it'll do it more efficiently and more effectively. See, so about hemp. And see, and to me, in my own mind, when I look at it, I look at all the things that are going on, whoever the bad guys, whatever they're all up to, you know, and everybody's dissatisfied. You've got these different movements protesting here and there, but you know, I think that if the people got together and stood for hemp and said, we want hemp brought back to the American, we want hemp brought back into the American fabric of life. See, I think that that's the stand that would address all the issues. That's just my own opinion. So anyway, I'm working with some people, and our goal is to raise as much consciousness as we can about industrial hemp as we can. Yeah. We have no real plan. Our plan is to talk to you and have you come up with a plan. Right? It really is. But we call it grassroots. Hemp roots. Okay. Got to be careful how you say grassroots, but I'm in Grass Valley, so I guess it's okay. See, well, anyway, but we think that if people would take the time to understand it, and if it makes sense to them, and we don't want you to do anything that doesn't make sense. This is why we want you to go look. Not listen to just what I say, but if what I say creates enough interest for you to go look. And if it makes sense to you, then we're asking that you take the sense that it makes to you and pass it on to someone else. This is to us just basic. Because right now, what goes on in this country, right now, particularly in this country, you say hemp, everybody thinks marijuana. You know, and the distinction needs to be understood. And about the economics again. Right now, we hear all this talk about medical marijuana, legalize it, you know, and tax it, or whatever, all the stuff that's going on about it, and they're talking about the economics of pot, marijuana, being up there in the upper millions, hundreds of millions of dollars. Well, the practical reality is industrial hemp. If it became a part of this society's usage, the economics of industrial hemp would dwarf the economics of medical marijuana. See, this is something, but the people that are manipulating the economy and manipulating all this stuff, they don't want us to understand this. See, so in my mind, in the abstractions of my mind, I think, well, if we can get enough people to understand the realities of hemp and make a stand for hemp and say we want hemp, you know, that I think this is a way of altering the economic thing back to becoming more favorable to us. You know, what we're suggesting is that the next political election, that by the time the next political election comes around, whether it's a local level, wherever it's at, we're asking people to vote hemp. Don't vote for a candidate or a party, vote hemp. Learn everything you can about hemp and make it known in the political system. We will vote for hemp and make them come to you rather than you go to them and ask them. See, if you went to them and said, this is what we will support, but that isn't how the American voting public does it. They go and ask the politicians to support. And it's kind of, well, anyway, I'm not going to get lost in that. Right? But so, if you would think about this, and if it makes sense to you, because you see, about energy, because first we start approaching hemp about energy. But when we look at this, we start thinking about energy, and the most vital component about this whole energy thing is the energy that we bring individually. See, the energy we bring to this, the energy we bring to what it is, this is what will decide what the outcome will be. We're asking people to learn all that they can about it on their own so that they will understand it. Because we want understanding, because our feeling is, you know, when there's a problem and you want a solution, if the energy that seeks the solution is fear-driven, then the solution will be fear-based. If the energy that seeks the solution is coherent and understands what it's doing, then the solution will have coherency and understanding. And this is just something we consider to be true about energy, whether it's how we decide our individual lives or if it's on this larger social context. Into invisible. He's an old man now. In worlds he accumulated long left behinds, when only today was real, and yesterday and tomorrow were always on their own. He did the things he should, and the things he shouldn't, weaving regrets and glories into invisible ribbons and scars. When there was no place else to go, he went further into his mind, into places where memories begin, and imaginations are still wide open. All those worst that could happen kept inviting him back for more, with invitations dressed up in allure, until came a time he finally caught on. When the best that could happen kept coming back, not to be denied, showing him there are ways through into the reality of rhythms and flows. Comes a time to slow down, to hurry. Life lives in the moment to moment. How we breathe is how we balance. So anyway, that's what I got to say. Thank you for it. Thank you.